Everyone, welcome to SCD Probiotics online product training. We're here today to learn more about Odor Away. Thank you all for taking an hour out of your day and learning more about the products, and I'm sure that the information that you get today is going to be intended to make all of us more successful. So thanks in advance for your time. Let me introduce myself. I'm Mindy McDermott. I've met most of you. We have a few people on the line, and more will be joining us. But I'll be the moderator of today's call. If there are issues related to the webinar, you can go ahead and put in a chat question, but hopefully all of the technical issues will go smoothly, and we'll be able to jump right into the business of why we're here, which is to learn more about our product. Before we get started, let me tell you a few things about SCD just prior to us going forward. Okay, I'm hoping everybody can see the screens ahead of us. You should have a screen in front of you now called Logistics. Just a few housekeeping rules to go over. I talked a little bit about questions that you might have, any questions, whether it's about the webinar itself or about the technical information you're going to be learning. If you have a question, we're going to handle those at the end of the hour, but go ahead and put them in your chat box online, and we'll be able to address the questions at the end. I'm hoping everybody can hear me okay, so if you can't, let us know that through the chat box as well. The webinar is being recorded, and it will be available for you later today. We'll be sending you a post-event survey for you to get your feedback, but also that will allow you to have the link for the BoxNet site, which will then allow you to access both the audio and the PowerPoint presentation at any time at your convenience. I think really that's about it. Just in terms of the survey, we will be asking you what you might like to see in future webinars, so please feel free to provide that kind of feedback as well. With us today is going to be our Industrial Applications Business Development Manager, Julianne Ponder. I think you all know Julianne.
Hi.
And Naren Tipsaru-Sakand, our Director of Technology, is going to be joining us as well later in the hour. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. As I said, this seminar is our second seminar that we've had. And let me tell you, and it's going to follow a very similar format. I'll start off with a very brief overview on SCD. Most of you are familiar with our organization, but just to kind of get us all on the same playing field, I'll provide a small SCD overview, and then turn it over to Julianne, who will go through a technology overview and then talk very specifically about the applications and benefits of SCD Odor Away. We'll allow the last 15 minutes of the hour for questions. So again, feel free to add your questions via the chat box, and either Julianne or Naren, who will have joined us by that time, will be able to address the questions. Just a little bit about our company. As you know, SCD started in 1998. Actually in the garage of the CEO, Matt Wood. He has since then has moved from distributing products with a microbial-based technology to manufacturing products, and that began in 2004. Since that time, we've been very active in both the consumer and industrial market segments. We have a very large network of distributors, wholesalers, and retailers selling worldwide. In fact, we actually have 21 licensees who manufacture and sell the SCD branded products throughout the world. And we are building our global library of testimonials, case studies, research information that really helps in your all's effort to sell this product to the customers you've identified. Because as you know, it's very important to have the research data that talks about the efficacy of the products, and that's an important part of some of the things you'll hear later today by Julianne. Again, a very simple definition of probiotics: live microorganisms which benefit the host. I think what's important for everybody to understand here is that the concept of probiotics is one that's growing, and more people around the world are beginning to understand what probiotics are. A synonym for probiotics are beneficial microorganisms, good bacteria, and if you really want to make it simple, it's just a plain old good bug that could reside in your stomach or in a wastewater system or in a manure lagoon for livestock. But basically we're talking about good bacteria. As I mentioned before, most of the world, when they think of probiotics, they might think of yogurt. But the good news is that they know that yogurt does something good for the health of people. Well, what SCD has done is they've taken that same concept, they've taken literally the concept of probiotics, good bacteria, and have put it in a liquid format in big containers, and now have adapted it to provide solutions to many different industrial problems, whether it's for agricultural, livestock, wastewater treatment, environmental issues such as composting or bioremediation. So there are plenty of opportunity out there where our products make a huge difference, and odor control is one of the benefits that the products deliver. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Julianne to talk specifically about how the technology works to control odor.
Okay, hi everybody. Just type a message if you have any problems hearing me, or type your questions along the way. If it's relevant, I'll answer them as I go, but most likely we'll tackle them all at the end and get more into specific application questions you have. This is a little bit about R&D. We have 10 years improving probiotic technology. Our technology is protected through trade secrets, not patented. It's a unique value proposition to your customers. Liquids are easy to administer, cost-effective, and provide solutions to a number of consumer and industrial problems. So, what we talked about last time on the overview of probiotics and our products, I'm going to elaborate on, and I'm going to say this probably at the beginning of every webinar you guys have, and that is the two most important things about our products as far as the efficacy and how they work, and more specifically how we work against our competition. The first is competitive exclusion, and there are 5% of pathogenic or harmful microorganisms in any environment, on your skin, in your stomach, on a table, in a wastewater treatment system. And there are 5% beneficial or probiotic microorganisms. The other 90% are neutral. They can become pathogenic or beneficial depending on the environment, what's introduced, and which populations are the most prominent. So in nature, it's 5% beneficial, 5% harmful, and 90% neutral. When you introduce a spike or population of pathogenic bacteria, then the whole population becomes pathogenic, and that's when you get sick, or you have food poisoning, or you have odor problems. Same thing for probiotics. If you introduce a high population of probiotics or beneficial microorganisms, it takes over that system and promotes fermentation, which does not have that malodor or other things associated with the pathogens. The second thing that's important is our technology is based on a consortia. meaning there are multiple types of microorganisms within our product. There are 3 main groups. They are yeast, lactic acid bacteria, and phototrophic bacteria. There's some other strains in there that do some specific functions, but those are the 3 main groups of microorganisms in our products. When you think of yogurt, it's usually pure culture, meaning one specific strain of bacteria, and it only exists in a laboratory. It's grown and cultured in a lab, and they're not resilient in real-world environments. In real-life ecological niches or environments, there are millions of different kinds of microorganisms living together, responding to and changing their environment. That's nature. Nature doesn't have one portion where it's all the same strain of microorganism. It has millions living together to get the job done. Our probiotic consortia, they aid each other with complementary enzymes, and they coordinate the release of enzymes. That is a fancy way of saying that they communicate. They are capable, once they reach larger populations, of doing large jobs that other microorganisms cannot do. They do this by releasing enzymes and identifying enzymes to say, hey, we're at a certain level, we're at a population, it's time to go get rid of this odor, time to go treat this wastewater, whatever it might be. The consortia life cycles interlock. The waste products of one kind become the food source of the next. In our white paper on odor control, it's more in depth with this. Usually you won't get this technical with customers for you guys, but you might have some that might, and you might want to just learn more yourselves. And for each major group of microorganisms in our consortia, they metabolize or eat a particular substrate and then produce or have a byproduct of another substrate that becomes the food source for another group. So it's a cycle and a chain where they all are eating and producing something that another portion of microorganism needs in the consortia. So in huge and changing numbers, they perform tasks of which individually they are incapable. Some of the advantages of our technology, multi-strain bacteria, consortia, they're very genetically diverse, helps them how they can be so effective in so many different types of applications. More resilient in the real world. They have a 2 to 3 year shelf life depending on the product. SCD has a dedication of quality control. We've talked before about our stringent standards of QC, and every product you have has a lot code on it, so we can trace it back to that specific certificate of analysis, which tells us the populations of microorganisms that were in there, so we can control that every batch that goes out has high populations and will be effective in the application they're going into. Applications require minimal dosage, which to reduce costs, and they're concentrated in there. You guys all know this, that there's a dilution ratio for different applications, so you know, it works for a lot of different applications economy-wise. Some of the product features: shelf life and stability, we've talked about. Survival under extreme conditions. We have very few limitations regarding temperature, pressure, pH, that kind of stuff, whereas a lot of competitors do. We can work in many conditions. It's natural and organic, variety of sizes and volumes, which you guys know about, and concentrated. So now I'm going to get more into the specific product of Odor Away. Odor Away is an all-natural, safe, biological odor reducer that contains SCD's patented consortia of microorganisms and their metabolites. It's used for a lot of different applications. We're going to focus on a few more popular ones today, like livestock, lagoons, pens, waste treatment, composting operations, etc. So here is an overview of what we're going to talk about. I'd like to kind of say to some of our distributors that are on the call that, you know, in my opinion and experience, Odor Away is a really great product to start with and to promote right out of the gate. It's kind of an easy sell for a couple reasons. One is you can see the results very quickly, you know, within a matter of 15 minutes. A lot of the other products can take days, weeks, or months to see effective results. The Odor Away can work very quickly. Also, it can work for smaller scale applications. We're going to talk about some of those later. But it's something that you can really get out there, start talking about, start learning more about probiotics and the questions you're going to get from your customers, and have some quick, easy sales and revenue coming in. So the first application we're going to talk about is livestock operations. Typical customer, beef cattle, dairy cattle, poultry, swine, any operations where they have food production, all the way from the farmers who will be growing them to the CAPOs, the concentrated animal feed organizations. Anywhere that there is odor concern, whether regulatory or from neighbors or work conditions or the conditions for the animals. The application is for the barn or the animal enclosures and their lagoons. Common rates. So these rates I'm going to talk about are simply budgetary numbers for you to start discussing economics with your potential customers. As you guys know, we've talked about before, every situation is dependent on that application, and we like to see the questionnaire completed so we can do a specific protocol for these applications. You know, it can change up or down for the amount that's going to be required for yours, but these are some common rates to start with and to talk about with your customers so they can get an idea of the economics behind it and the application. So for the barn or their pen enclosures, it's a 1 to 500 dilution ratio, meaning, for example, 1 gallon of SCD Probiotics Odor Away to 500 gallons of water. Obviously, you can scale it down. You can do it something as easily as a backpack sprayer and just spray the pen or barn weekly. If they have current systems that spray down or wash down the barns regularly, just use that dilution ratio for however amount of water they normally use and add the probiotics into their holding tank, irrigation system, sprinkler system, whatever it might be. For the lagoon, the ratio is 1 to 1,000. This means 1 gallon of SCD Odor Away to 1,000 gallons of water in the lagoon. It's applied directly to the lagoon. The best application is sprayed on top. Use a backpack sprayer or irrigation sprayer and spray over the surface of the lagoon. That's the easiest way to get it inoculated quickly. You can just pour it in at an ideal point. Looking at it, usually an inlet or an outlet is the best point. Provides more movement so it can inoculate the full lagoon. Once you have that initial higher ratio and inoculate the current lagoon, they only treat at a ratio of 1 to 3,000 for incoming water. So this means that there's going to be a shock treatment immediately that's going to require a lot more odor away than their daily maintenance treatment. You can not shock the system as long as you manage the expectations of your customer that they're not going to get results as fast because it's going to take longer for the lagoon to be inoculated. So you can just start with the 1 to 3,000 dilution ratio for incoming water, which is going to be a lot less because, you know, let's say it's a 3 million gallon lagoon, but they only have 700 gallons a day coming in. So you would only treat that 700 gallons a day. You can do it that way, and it's a lot more cost effective as long as you manage their expectations that it's going to take longer for the whole lagoon to become inoculated. Benefits of the odor elimination: you can comply with regulations. Here in Missouri, there have been some recent lawsuits and regulations that have been coming about regarding odor control of swine facilities. I think it's going to become a lot bigger topic here in the U.S. and possibly abroad too. They have to comply with regulations. It also helps with neighbor complaints and worker safety. And it's an improved environment for the animals. The less you stress out the animals and the better their environment is, the more production you have and return on your investment you're going to have. The next is commercial solid waste facilities. This ranges from the separation stations and landfills. This usually is a private company who collects the waste, have separation stations, and then it goes to different landfills or different operations. A lot of communities now do recycling So they have separation stations for the trucks all the way to separation stations for the different recyclables before they get to the landfill. There's private and municipal waste management companies. You know, I think our product would work great for either. It's similar applications. Private usually is kind of a quicker sale and easier to get into. The application is as easy as spraying via backpack or misting systems. Backpack sprayers are for more smaller scale operations. It's pretty labor intensive if you have a large scale, but it's a good way for them to get started using the product. They can see that it works. For some of our distributors who also provide a service of applying it, you can add that service in there and you know it would work. A lot of existing separation systems in landfills have misting systems already. Now you can use the Odor Away with their misting systems. Some things to be aware of for a misting system. A common rate is 1 to 300 to 1 to 500 within the misting system. They can mix it with city water as long as the chlorine levels aren't too high. You know, it just depends, and it's something to be wary of and ask the questions and know what their water source is. Another thing about the misting systems is a lot of these nozzles are very expensive and highly specialized for what they do. So you need to make sure they have a filtration system. There is sediment in our product, so you need to make sure they have a filtration system that's going to do a filter before it gets to that nozzle so it's not clogged by the sediments in our product. Most systems do, but again, it's just a question you need to ask and be upfront and manage the expectations of the customer. Also, if they don't use the misting systems continually, they start and stop. For instance, they stop overnight. There can be a biological film that forms over the nozzles, and they go to turn it on the next morning, and nothing comes out, and they call you, and they're freaking out and scared. They clog their nozzles and cost them a ton of money. It's just a biological film. If they run water through the system, it'll get rid of it and then start misting everything else. It's no problem, but it works great in mist systems. Depending on the application, there are some other products that have some additional benefits. If their main concern is odor, then you want to use Odor Away. And if they're using a misting system or any other spray system where you need to neutralize the odor in the air, you need to use Odor Away. It works the fastest and is the most effective for air applications. The next application is commercial composting. There are composting operations pretty much in every major city. U.S. city, there are also huge composting operations throughout Central and South America. A lot of times they kind of stay under the radar. It's a not in my backyard type situation. You won't see a lot of advertising or anything from them. You kind of have to seek them out. They're a great application for our probiotics. A lot of them have either received regulatory fines or neighbor complaints that for their odor, and it causes them to, they can't grow, they can't accept additional organic waste, which greatly improves their organic compost quality. There's a lot of things that changes their business model because they have to manage the odor. The other thing is that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. For composting operations, you want to, there's a lot of other products like SCD Bioag you can use to incorporate for other benefits, but you can start out right with Odor Away. You can use a less amount per ton to be treated and have effective odor control results. A lot of these commercial composters are trying to become organic. The more chemicals they use in the process, the further they get away from becoming organic. As we've talked about before, Odor Away is OMRI certified, so it's an organic product. I've had a lot of interested composting customers who ask me a lot of questions. It just opens the door talking about OMRI certification because they're trying to get there. And it's a very hard certification to get and to keep. And they're always asking me lots of questions about, you know, how did you get it and how long did it take and all this kind of stuff. It's very impressive that we have that certification. And most composting customers will understand how impressive that is. And if they're using any sort of of odor control currently, they'll be eager to change to something organic. Or two, if they're feeling any pressures, this is a way to introduce an odor control component. When you treat the organic waste, meaning they take organic waste or municipal waste, separate all of the food systems, they take a lot of waste from different grocery stores, farmers markets, stuff like that. This is what we're calling the organic waste, and it has high carbon content, and it tends to start putrefying immediately. And putrefaction is what leads to the bad odors. With our product, it promotes fermentation, which gives it that good earthy smell. So one key thing is the quicker they treat it, the better. Another thing is that they can increase the amount of organic waste they're implementing, which is going to increase the organic compost quality because they're promoting fermentation and they're not going to have odor issues. So common rate is 3 to 5 liters per ton of waste if it's just treating the actual compost rows and waste. There are many other applications. If they're going to use backpack sprayers or a misting system, then it's what we talked about before, which is 1 to 300 to 1 to 500 range of a dilution ratio for their misting systems or backpack sprayers. Some other benefits, obviously the most important ones, that it mitigates odors. It can improve their compost quality and reduce their composting time. The next application is odor control for distribution systems in municipalities. We get a lot of calls and leads from around the country and around the world for different plant level, wastewater treatment plant that has a bad smell, but a lot of times it's easier to treat in a more approachable application for the collection system, meaning the different pump stations. A lot of times manholes and different drainage areas will have bad smells associated with them. So there's different collection points among a city, and then it all goes to one pump station for a particular area. That pump station clicks on, then pumps it on to the plant. So all these different pump stations can have waste sitting there for an amount of time, and the way the chemical reactions are, the odor gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So you can use Odor Away for this. For collection systems, common rate is 1 to 50,000. For plant systems, it's 1 to 100,000. Now, if you're talking to a municipal plant, a lot of times all they're going to say, first of all, they're going to say they don't have odor problems. If you can get to some level and say that you can help them, simply for odor problems for the collection system is 1 to 50,000, meaning 1 gallon of SCD Odor Away to 50,000 gallons of water to be treated. It's going to have additional benefits throughout the system, and it's good to have another dosage right at the plant system so they can see more of these benefits. We'll talk more about all the benefits in plant systems in the next webinar where we go over BioClean. But if you do have interest for odor control in a plant system, the rate is 1 to 1,000 to start talking about and go off of. The major benefits, one, odor control, and you can also increase the productivity of the system by lowering their outflow parameters of COD, which is chemical oxygen demand, BOD, biological oxygen demand, and TSS, which is total suspended solids. The last application I'm going to talk about is just different commercial applications. No customer is too small. We've had some distributors who have approached smaller scale customers who are not going to be buying by the tote, but if you get enough of them, then it starts to make a difference. Like I said, you can have a lot of face-to-face meetings, talk about the probiotics, talk about the products, get a higher comfort level with it, and then start approaching some of these bigger applications. A lot of success we've had is with dumpsters, trash compactors, stairwells, hospitality industry, meaning treatment of bathrooms or other smelly areas where people need to be. A lot of times there's a trash compactor or a dumpster, and they get the building management gets complaint because it's either in a parking garage, so people pass it all the time, or it is in an area where the workers have to be around all the time, stuff like that. It's a very easy application. They're going to buy 1 liter a month and just spray it on there using a pump sprayer or spray bottle. But it is a really good application because you can walk up, find the source of the odor, spray with the odor away, walk away, have a meeting, conversation, come back 15 minutes later, and they can see the results. Application rate is 1 to 50 dilution ratio. That means they can get a little, go a long way. The benefits: it's a fast and long-term solution to odor control. With a lot of chemicals for any of the applications we've talked about today, chemicals for odor control have you dump them in, they work immediately, they work well in some cases, but then it moves on to the next phase of the chemical reaction, and it usually requires more and more as the process goes on and you continue to use the chemical. For probiotics, they stay where they're at, they take over the environment, so it takes less and less for the application as you go along. So now we're going to talk about some of the case studies we have. A lot of the larger customers you're approaching and talking to are like, I want to see how it works, I want to see where it's worked, and get testimonials and case studies and data on it. So I'm just going to go over a few ones that we have that are specific for odor control. These are all available on the website. This is shortened versions of them, and I'm not going to go through everything. I'm just going to talk about what the problem was, what the results were, and some of the data that we can provide. For a case study in Nicaragua, it was reduction of H2S in a wastewater treatment system. H2S is that rotten egg smell. It's very popular with wastewater treatment plants, landfills, really any sort of putrefaction, there's an H2S smell. This customer was facing a lot of regulatory challenges. They were threatening to be closed down their operations because they were over the legal limits for H2S. They were also receiving a lot of complaints from the neighbors in the area that it was just, the smell was too bad. So the constant complaints, and then they're complaining to the regulatory agencies. They were being threatened to be shut down. So what we did was they had a daily flow of 210,000 to 3.1 million liters, depending on how much product they had to make that day. It's approximately 700 liters of SCD probiotics that were applied every day to their wastewater treatment system. It was applied prior to their aeration process in their treatment. The results were monitored before and after. They were taken by the personnel of the distillery, and we obtained significant odor control results. Here's a picture of their fermentation tank. You can see a tote there of the SCD probiotics and the fermentation tanks. Before the treatment, you can see their averages were over 81%, were over 20 parts per million, and 93% were less than 40. So it was between 20 and 40. Afterwards, it was 99% were 0 parts per million, and 1% was over 20 parts per million after the application of probiotics. The next is a case, it's not a case study we have, it's a third-party study conducted by Dr. C. Schmidt, and it was use of our Odor Away on leachate from a landfill. As you guys know, composting operations and landfill operations have leachate or liquid waste that comes out of it, and it's one of the worst smells in the world. Usually toxic. They have to manage what they do with their leachate so it doesn't get into groundwater systems. So we took this liquid leachate and used our Odor Away and tested the odor control for it. So you can see there's a whole paper on the methodology he used and how he did it, but here's the results basically. 76% of the odor was controlled within 1 hour of application, 93% after 48 hours, and 96% after 8 days. Another case study we have is a Wisconsin dairy farm. It was a livestock application, obviously. They needed help with odor control of their lagoon. They were also having regulatory pressure and complaints from their neighbors. It was a 1.1 million gallon lagoon. Prior to the treatment, using a scintometer, their data ranged from 7 to 15 dilution threshold. Here's a chart of prior to application, what the dilution threshold readings were, and after application. The blue bar is the probiotics applied. So as we talked about before, they had a shock treatment of over 200 liters applied. And then you can see how quickly that first day we applied a lot of probiotics, and then it shot down dramatically to about 20 liters applied, and then gets down to, it looks like about 5 or 10 liters applied. So you can see before the dilution threshold, the green bars, the average was 13. After application, the subsequent 7 days, the average was 5.5. That's a 57% reduction in odor for them. The next one is a case study in Cartagena, Colombia, and it was controlling odor and reducing a bacterial load in their waste treatment stream. So what they did was take 3 manholes, and they took readings, odor measurements in them from these manholes. And they also wanted to reduce the levels of COD, DOD, and TSS that we talked about before. This was basically a no treatment system. So this was the only form of treatment that the waste was receiving before it was put into a water body. Samples were taken in the 3 pumping stations every week for 3 months. The results, we had reduction of the total suspended solids by 68%, BOD 66%, COD was reduced by 25%. There's some other benefits and stuff that we measured there. You can see the pathogen levels, the total coliforms and fecal coliforms were also reduced. Here's some of the tables from that. Here's a % reduction in the pollution indicators we just talked about. And here's a table of the odor measurements. So you can see for the 3 different locations, they are called Boca Grande, Castillo Grande, and Laguito. The H2S measurements, which was the hydrogen sulfide measurements that are measured. When we started at Boca Grande, it's 20 to 30 parts per million. And by the end, it was between 5 and 0. Castillo Grande was 60. After that, it was 3 and 0 after treatment. Laguito was 10, and after that, it was 0 parts per million for outside and inside the manhole chambers. We have other support materials. It's highly dependent on the applications. As you guys know, every customer wants to see their application, a testimony or a case study specifically about them. We don't have it for every application, but we can work with you and let you know what we have for each one. We have testimonials, case studies, white papers, usage guides, other collateral, and the questionnaires that you guys can use. Now I'm going to talk about some of the competitors, what we have for odor control competitors, and why our probiotics are better. First is chemicals. SCD Odor Away is a natural organic solution. We all know that common chemicals are harmful to the environment. A lot of companies have goals, sustainability or green goals over the next 5 to 10 years that they're trying to implement and achieve. A lot of this can fall into reaching those goals. You need to talk to them about it. Do you have any sustainability goals? There are also a lot of organizations and specific people who just kind of get it and want to change to something that's more natural and organic. Our Odor Away is a systemic approach to improve the conditions. Chemical agents, most of the chemical odor control agents are masking agents, meaning they mask the odor with a different smell, like lavender or cherry. I think we all know that it doesn't really work, and it just smells like cherry-flavored garbage at the end of the day. Our products take less time for the same results, meaning the longer you use the product, the less you're going to need over time to achieve the same results. Common chemicals takes more product over time for the same results. SCD Odor Away versus pure culture, meaning other microorganisms or other what can be claimed as probiotics in the industry. We've talked about how we're multi-strain in a consortia. Pure culture is what we talked about, that they're grown in a laboratory as single strains, very limited in genetic diversity, and they're more vulnerable in the real world. You know, it's basically a miracle that any of them make it through a system, much less maintain the populations they need to do the jobs that are needed. Our probiotics are more resilient in the real world. The last one is SCD Odor Away versus other consortia or probiotic technologies. We have 14 strains of microorganisms. Other probiotics that claim their consortia have a smaller amount of microbial strains, or sometimes they're all strains within the same group. For example, they're all lactic acid bacteria, not multiple different groups that live off each other's byproducts like we talked earlier. So our type of consortia is more what happens in the real world. That way they're able to maintain the populations they need to when they're introduced in these environments. Odor Away is specially formulated product for odor control. Other consortia products it's a similar product for all applications and similar application techniques for all applications. Ours is specifically just for odor control. It allows it to be more effective quicker than our competition. SCD Odor Away also has the quality control standards that all of our products have. Some other consortia, they don't give any guarantees on their quality or microbial populations. They don't provide what we have on our website, which is a certificate of analysis that says the populations we guarantee that are live in our product that are going to do the job that we say it does. So now that's on the Odor Away. I think Mindy's going to talk about some other upcoming events, and then we're going to see any questions that you guys have.
Thanks, Julianne. Just to summarize a couple of things. As you all know, the consumers really are demanding more and more sustainability in the way we live and the business practices of the businesses in their community, as well as the rise in organic solutions. So both of those things present a great opportunity, as well as the increasing government regulations. If the consumers aren't demanding it, the government's going to start fining people. So you guys are really well positioned to offer a solution that could be very, very beneficial and desirable. Just a couple of things. I know this was a lot of information. You know, the company SCD Probiotics does have a long track record of financial growth and success. So if you're having to talk to your customers about who's backing up your product, well, it's a company that's been around for a long time and been in the business for a long time. We've just completed the brand positioning with the name SCD Probiotics sort of out there on all of our products and all of our literatures, and the SCD Probiotic inside logo is an important brand element that, you know, will, I think, strengthen all of your marketing efforts. The company itself has gotten a lot of visibility this past year, and we continue to explore new opportunities to develop new products. So for product line extensions that we'll do other things, look for coming announcements in the next, 6 to 12 months. With that, I'm going to just leave it open to some Q&A. We haven't had a lot of chat happening at this point. Maybe there was so much information coming your way. But, oh, here's one. All right. Well, we will read the question so everybody understands it. And Noreen has joined us as well. He's in the room, so feel free to make your questions as hard and as technologically difficult as possible. He's well equipped. So the first question.
For Craig's question, in the Nicaragua case study, it was this activated probiobalance or Odor Away, and did the customer continue to buy? It was probiobalance plus that they bought our mother culture and activated it themselves using a byproduct of their waste treatment process called Vanasa. And did the customer continue to buy? The answer is yes. They've used it for how many years, Naren?
Boy, it started in like 2005. They have been using for, they stopped at one point because we don't have any like on-site distributor. So our competitor got to the door got them switched briefly, and they quickly turned back and used our product because it didn't work for them. And we taught them actually spatial way of making the products.
Yeah, we worked with them to use their current waste stream so that they could keep their costs down for activating the mother culture, but still having it effective for their odor control. And Naren said that they switched to a competitor for a portion, and the competitor was another Consortia technology. And like Naren said, it didn't work, and they switched back to us. And Craig, you can appreciate that they are now interested in becoming a licensee and or a distributor for other applications in Nicaragua. They're continuing to use it and are very happy with the results. Next question. Hello there, Julie. First of all, sorry about the late. Is there any harm for people around the places where it's inoculated? Maybe I lost that part. No, that's a great question. You can apply it for a lot of other chemicals, especially the household and hospitality uses we talked about. Other chemicals, you have to wait till it dries or keep people away. There's absolutely nothing like that. It's safe for people, pets, animals. The Odor Away, I mean, you could drink it if you really wanted to. It's very similar and made from the same probiotic mother cultures and consortia that our human health products are made from. Anything else? Perfectly safe.
Go figure what they don't know. That was her last comment.
Craig wants to talk more about the difference in efficacy of Odor Away in aerosol misting versus BioClean or BioAg. Naren can probably explain this more technically. The main thing is BioClean and BioAg have their specific applications they're formulated and designed for. BioAg is the product we recommend for commercial composting if they want additional results. Usually it's going to take more BioAg to obtain all the other results we talked about, like improving the compost quality and reducing the composting time. There have been some compost customers that I have visited and had feedback from on distributors that they only want to control odor. They don't want help with their process. They don't want to change their process and incorporate something else into it, or they fight moisture as it is and don't want to deal with it. They just want to help control odor. So for an aerosol or misting application, Odor Away is the best. Naren, do you want to talk more about any of the, a lot has to do with the PNSP, correct?
Yeah, I mean, in odor control, in this particular case, is really, if you're talking about the misting, is, you know, generally speaking, I mean, the ammonia and hydrogen sulfide are the two most common odor-causing compounds. Our products, we sell our probiotics that contain both live microbes and also they're metabolized. You know, in a simple manner, simple way to explain it, they're metabolized, neutralize those hydrogen sulfide and ammonia, therefore reducing the odor in the air.
So that means the byproducts or metabolites that are in the actual bottle of Odor Away have the more immediate effective results, and the live microorganisms in the Odor Away that settle into all the environments do the longer term odor control. So that's why it's best to use Odor Away if they only want to do odor control, and if it's an aerosol application, then it's Odor Away is the product to use. The next question is there an easy way to explain how it works on a chemical level? The easiest, and Naren's here, and he can explain, as in depth as you want to. For me, the easiest way to explain it when a customer is asking is there's a couple different things. The first is that the lactic acid bacteria, there's several strains of that group of microorganisms in Odor Away. They lower the pH because they produce lactic acid. So they make the pH in the environment acidic. A lot of pathogens and other microorganisms can't survive in this acidic environment, so they outcompete them that way. The other thing is the yeast and photosynthetic bacteria are what are called heterotrophic bacteria. They reproduce very quickly, usually 15 minutes to 1 hour, and they can metabolize inorganic substrates. So a lot of what happens in applications where there are bad odors is there's a high level of organic matter in the whole system, and that leads to mineralization, which is a microbial process where a substance is converted from an organic to an inorganic compound. This inorganic compound is many times ammonia, which is a very common ammonia NH2S, which is a common volatile that's associated with bad smells. So this mineralization leads to ammonia and H2S, and those heterotrophic microorganisms, which are yeast and photosynthetic bacteria can use this, metabolize it, and they break it down into less harmful compounds. You know, that sounds, I don't know if that was the easiest way to explain it chemically. It's how I understand what I understand the most about how Odor Away works. There's more in-depth description of this in the white paper. Naren, is there anything else?
No, I think that's, you know, as in a simple way, it's a mineralization and then the reaction of attacking those by the biological activity by the microbes.
Okay, so we're looking at Jaime's question is how can we deal with probiotic applications in food industries and other industries for that matter that currently use chlorine and other chemical disinfectants daily.
Jaime, if I understand, you are talking about that they're willing to use probiotics, but they're not willing to stop using chlorine?
A lot of times they have existing systems, especially food production, to help control pathogen outbreaks. They have to have a system of how many times a day they apply disinfectants.
I think the idea is really you probably two things that you have to have a little bit of a time between applications, because there's a half-life where the chlorine is completely no longer effective or have any antimicrobial effects against our microbes. And also, if you want to use it pretty much right immediately after, you're going to have to use a lot more product to overcome that the chlorine antimicrobial properties.
So, you know, a couple options are what Naren just described of you're going to use more probiotics because some are going to be immediately killed off by the chlorine, or wait as long as you can in between applications. A lot of food production facilities have such high levels of concern and regulations for E. coli and Salmonella that they have in-house labs they use. They do constant sampling and swabbing for E. coli and Salmonella. Is try to discuss a more long-term plan of using the probiotics as their system for disinfectant. So try to pick areas where they can only use the probiotics, and then other areas where they're using it with the chlorine, and get some results to show how much they're controlling pathogens that we are just as effective or more effective than the chlorine solution, and possibly they can start to use solely the probiotics instead of other disinfectants. Yeah, for most applications that would be BioClean, which we're going to talk about next time. But, you know, that reminds me that food production is another great application for Odor Away. A lot of times odor is associated with these food slaughterhouses and production plants. And the main concern is odor, and that's how you can get in the door and start selling and talking about it. But another benefit that's a really hot topic issue is it helps to control the pathogens like E. coli and Salmonella. Next question is there any reaction in case of hospital uses between the product and substance that exists in hospitals? The reaction with other microorganisms in a hospital is similar to any other application, and that's that when you apply the probiotics, they're going to outcompete other microorganisms, specifically pathogenic microorganisms. Hospitals is something else, though, that they use a lot of disinfectants, so it's something to be careful of, like we just talked about for food production facilities, that the probiotics aren't going to be as effective or very effective at all if they're applied right after a disinfectant is. Anything else to be concerned about with the hospital?
It's pretty much the same. How it works. It just, I guess, in this case, it depends on the regulations that kind of determine what type of product that we can use. Because in some of these, like food industry, maybe bioclean will not be the solution unless we make some product that meeting the regulation standards.
Another question is, when inoculating, with the product, can the microorganisms resist 100 centigrades in the pelletizing process?
No, they'll die off.
They'll die.
There might be some survival, but there will not be anything that at the population density that can have positive effect to the host animal later.
Yeah. 80, right, is around.
I would say that within to be conservative is to be 60
degrees Celsius.
Can't hear you, Lynn.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and say that again about this.
Yeah, Jaime, it won't work at 100 degrees Celsius. It's too high. I wouldn't go anything beyond 60 degrees Celsius.
Okay, I think we've gone through all the questions. If you guys have any more, feel free to email me or your account coordinator. And
I just have, this is Mindy again. Thank you again for joining us. Look for the email either late this afternoon or tomorrow with a short survey and the link to the BoxNet site where you will find this presentation available for your use. And please feel free to share it with your customers. You're welcome to use it, and get the maximum amount of value out of it. I'll just leave you with one quote. I think, Craig, you had mentioned earlier in the chat that people fear what they do not know. I heard a really interesting quote the other day that I'll leave you with that might be useful for you to talk to your own customers with. And that is, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So for everybody that's doing the same old thing and getting the same old bad results, if they don't try something different, they're going to not see any improvements. So this is an opportunity to kind of push your customers to a new way of thinking, and good luck to you. We'll look for your feedback.
Thanks, everyone, for your time. My final quote isn't as philanthropic because mine is sell, sell, sell. Go sell and call me with any questions. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.